Let's talk a little bit about carpet seaming tools. Just a quick walkthrough on some of the carpet seaming tools you're going to see on the job site or in our class and lab space. So obviously we have the basics like tape measures, utility knives, things of that nature. But these are a few additional tools that you're going to see when you are cutting or seaming broadloom carpet, whether that's commercial or residential stretched-in installation. So again, I mentioned the standard utility knife, but we're going to start here with the carpet knife. And this is just another version of a handheld knife, a little bit different in just the angle, the fixed position of the blade, and it uses a double-edged slotted blade. Now this slotted blade sits inside here in a notched groove that just allows this to bite down and hold that tight. Once this is locked down, that blade is not going to move, it doesn't wiggle. This is very sharp on both edges, and the angle allows you to get into tight corners. This is very good for doing delicate or intricate work in terms of seam edges or inlay work, or maybe cutting in corners, any place where you need to get in tight and make sure that you are cutting just the area that you need to cut in a clean cut. Next, let's talk about seam cutters. And we'll start with the loop and pile cutter. And this one has a guard on it that allows you to cut over any surface, whether that is concrete, wood, carpet pad, or anything else that might be underneath your carpet. It uses the same double-edged slotted blade, and it has a little lock nut that holds that in place. Allows you to slide it up and down for adjustment. It can be removed by taking out the lock nut, and of course you can turn it 4 times roughly to use each edge to maintain a nice sharp blade. The blade in here is set at 60 degrees, which allows for the clean cut through the carpet. Additionally, this guard is adjustable, so you can open and close this by releasing the lock nuts. And typically this is adjusted to meet the thickness of the carpet backing. You want to make sure that you get all your adjustments right. Otherwise, what will happen as you're cutting is the fibers will bind up inside the guard or in the blade and make it harder to cut the carpet in a clean manner. So again, you want to adjust that to the thickness of the backing, lock it down, and then you move your blade into place, and you want to make sure that that blade seats all the way back into the guard. Again, to prevent fibers from building up where they don't belong and making this process difficult. Lastly, there are 2 slots, so you can put a blade on either side. However, typically it is easiest to just maintain it on the left side of the blade and make sure that you are cutting with the blade on the side of the carpet that you're going to use for your seaming edge. So if your carpet is on the left and you're making that as a used seaming edge, you're going to cut down that left edge. If you need to turn around and come up on the right edge, you're going to go to the other end of the carpet and cut back in the opposite direction. That's the loop and pile cutter. Next, we have the cushion back cutter, sometimes referred to as a top cutter. Very similar tool. Obviously you can see without the guard. Again, uses the same double-edged razor blade. This is held in just by a spring tension that allows you to slide it out. Again, blades can be inserted on both edges or both sides. Either way. The blade angle is a little bit different. This one's at 30 degrees, and that is to allow for a clean cut of carpets with the pad adhered to the backing. Lastly, we're going to go to the wall trimmer. This trimmer is intended for taking the excess carpet off of the edges as you're putting in your broadloom carpet installation. And primarily used with a stretched-in situation, this guard can be adjusted to give you the proper amount of carpet left to be tucked in between the tack strip and the wall or the base, whatever happens to be in place. Now, as I said, this is adjustable by just releasing the lock nuts, and you can now slide this in or out as needed. What I do want to point out though is that it appears that these are standard utility blades. However, they are not, and this is important to know. They are slightly smaller, but what you do need to be aware of is that this blade has a single bevel. So when you look at a razor blade, you see the beveled edge, that's the sharp edge. A standard utility blade has a double, it's tapered on both sides. This trimmer blade only has one. That is to produce a clean cut along the fiber edge without building up any fibers that are loose or can get caught up again in the trimmer like we talked about with the other cutters. So it's very important to make sure that you put the right blades into this trimmer. And then that can just be reinserted and set to the position needed. Next, just a quick and easy, is the row runner. If you go into a flooring store or your hardware or wherever and you look for a carpet row runner, this is what you're going to get. It's just essentially a flat blade screwdriver or a pointed awl on the other end. Now, I will tell you that if you do go this route and you buy something like this, you're going to want to take a file or a grinder and just kind of bump off the edges just to smooth them out a little bit, as they are pretty sharp from the manufacturer, and they will run much better through the row if you just take that little bit of sharpness off. You don't want to grind the point away, you just want to soften it a little bit. You can also use an old flat blade screwdriver. Same situation, you want to make sure that those edges are worn and a little bit rounded. You don't want that sharp, harsh edge on there. It will just make running the row harder. So that's a basic row runner. And lastly is a roller. And this is just a basic seam roller. This one happens to be a star roller. There's also a smooth roller. And the primary purpose of this tool is to work the seam into the hot glue as you make your seam. It can also be used to blend the seam a little bit. Its primary purpose is to work that carpet backing down into that adhesive, whether you're using a traditional hot melt iron or the newer Cool Glide system. So there you go, just a few basic tools you're going to see as we're working through carpet seaming in this next section. We're going to talk more about some other carpet tools as well. We'll look at that in another video.